Silent Hill 2 is best known for its main protagonist and his haunting story. The story of James Sunderland and his late wife Mary is remembered most by fans. However, within this game, along that journey, lies a character and story even more tragic and depressing. I'm talking about the shy and timid Angela Orosco, a young woman whom James encounters throughout the game. She is the first and last real person James meets in Silent Hill, and as an opening character to this game, she immediately displays how different this game is to other survival horror games of the time. Within Angela's character, we can uncover layers of trauma, abuse, and a hauntingly realistic portrayal of a real-world issue that many people are affected by. Through our many encounters with Angela, we can learn more about why she was called the Silent Hill and what exactly happened to her in the past. So today for you, I'm going to be analysing and looking into her full story. Without any further delay, let me dive into the full story of Angela Orosco. Angela herself can be encountered by James very early on into the game, even before he makes it into Silent Hill. Though the player and James's own journey has just begun, we meet Angela deep into her own story. After a short walk, James enters a cemetery, one that is caked in a thick layer of fog. Shrouded beneath all of that fog, we can find Angela. She is seen searching amongst the many tombstones of the graveyard. And our first meeting with Angela is very strange and uncanny. When James first stumbles upon her, she displays signs of social anxiety and a great deal of awkwardness. She seems anxious by the fact that someone else is here, and as James and Angela talk, we learn from her that Silent Hill is a dangerous place, although she can't exactly say how. James tells Angela why he is in Silent Hill, as he is looking for someone important. Angela reveals to James that she is too looking for someone important. She tells James that she is searching for her mama, although she quickly corrects herself and refers to her as her mother. She is also looking for her brother and father, but as she says this, her body language seems off and almost resistant to what she is saying. Something that is noticeable throughout our first meeting with Angela is the contrast in her personality and appearance. She sounds and looks like a mature woman, but her mannerisms are in a way childlike. Not only is this seen in how she calls her mother her mama, but in other little interactions as well. When Angela is telling James about how dangerous Silent Hill is, he doesn't let her finish speaking and disregards what she says. And when James tells her he's going to Silent Hill regardless, she shouts at him that she isn't lying, like she is trying to prove her point. Both of these feel to me like a child being dismissed by an adult, and all of these subtle mannerisms give her a very childlike attitude, and that impression of her has never left my head through playing. Angela is actually 19 years old, so neither of her contrasting age indicators are true. However, I will come back to why that is a little later on. After that cutscene, James is able to speak with Angela a few more times. However, they're all very awkward as he just tries to make some small talk, with Angela even reminding James that he is meant to be searching for someone.
That's right.
With our first meeting over, Angela, to many, appears as a normal but kinda awkward young woman. However, this is just the beginning of our encounters with her. Leaving the foggy little graveyard, we will next see Angela within the Blue Creek Apartments, one of the first main locations we get to explore. The apartments serve as a very memorable Silent Hill 2 location. Its dirty, decrepit rooms feel very lived in, and within the Blue Creek Apartments, room 109 can be found, which is where we will next encounter Angela. This apartment holds a different atmosphere to it. While many of the apartments we looked through prior were dirty, destroyed, and obviously lived in, room 109 feels more real in a way that's kinda hard to explain. Inside the apartment, two doors can be seen. Only one of them is enterable, as the other is boarded up with wooden planks. Entering into the white door, we see Angela laying on the floor. She is seen with her back to the door, and a large mirror can be seen taking up an entire wall of the room. Angela also has a large kitchen knife in her hand, and she holds it very close to herself, almost like she is studying the blade's sharp edges. After formal introductions, James seems to notice the knife in her hand, and he has a pretty good idea of what Angela may plan to do with the knife. James tells Angela that there is always another way, which Angela simply mocks dismissively. Her mocking tone persists now as she tells James that they are the same. She also says that her and James always run away, and that it's what they deserve. This sounds like she is saying that her and James deserve to die. I feel like this line here could be Angela projecting some depressive tendencies onto James. James then hits back at Angela by rejecting this idea that her and him are similar. which is something that will be brought up again later on. Angela goes on to ask James if he is afraid to die. However, she quickly changes her attitude and apologizes to him.
I'm sorry.
Angela still hasn't found her mother, and she is unsure if her mother even lives in this apartment building, to which James assumes that Angela at least knows her mother lives in the town of Silent Hill, which sets Angela off. She snaps at James and questions how he even knew that. James explains himself, which gets Angela to calm down, but when he asks her if he is correct, Angela dismisses the entire conversation altogether.
Yeah,
Am I right?
I'm so tired.
James asks Angela why she has even come to Silent Hill in the first place, which gets another apology from Angela and nothing more.
I'm sorry.
Angela then asks James about the person he is looking for, to which he tells her that he is searching for his late wife Mary, which naturally causes Angela to wonder why he is searching for a dead person. Angela then promptly gets up and says she will continue to search for her mama. Again, we see that childlike demeanor peeking through. James offers to go with Angela and keep her safe. Angela responds by not only turning down his offer, but also by putting herself down. The atmosphere in the room then turns kinda tense, as our attention is now placed back onto the kitchen knife. Angela asks James if he will hold on to it for her, as she is unsure of what she may do if she keeps it for herself. As James reaches out for the knife, Angela freaks out, obviously feeling threatened by a man approaching her to take away her only defense. She quickly snaps out of this state, and again she apologizes before leaving. As she leaves, she says that she has been bad, with her pleading with James to not do something to her. She leaves the knife on the table and disappears into the apartment quickly. Picking up the knife, we now see that its tip is stained red with what I presume to be blood, indicating that Angela has had to use this knife before. That entire interaction has started to show a lot of Angela's true nature. Her pleading with James desperately when she wasn't under any actual threat was almost like it's a natural reaction for her. More subtly seen in that interaction was the amount of times she apologizes to James, also like it's a defense mechanism for her. She also puts herself down through self-deprecation, and of course, she shows obvious signs of depression and suicidal tendencies. Angela is clearly a broken and hurt individual. However, we still don't know exactly the source of it all. Additionally seen in this room is a puzzle item, although it seems to be related to Angela. On the table next to Angela's knife, the prisoner coin can be acquired. This is needed for the coin puzzle in the apartments. However, I feel it's specifically placed with Angela to reference her being a prisoner of sorts. The coin itself features a woman on its face, which gives me even more reason to believe it's related to Angela. As for the large mirror in this room, I do believe it has relevance here, as typically people suffering with depression tend to have an awful view of themselves. The mirror forcing Angela to see herself could be related, but there is an even deeper meaning to this mirror, although I'll have to come back to that later on. After that interaction, room 109 has a fresh coat of paint on it perspective-wise. Just looking at the entrance to the mirror room, we see a stuffed toy on the ground next to the boarded up room. Room 109 could reference Angela's childhood home. Specifically, the boarded up doors could be related to her childhood memories, with her barricading the door up to keep herself from remembering that time in her life. And I say childhood specifically because of the stuffed toy next to the door. Even taking another look at the mirror room door, it's painted white, and in Japanese culture, white is often associated with purity, but it's also the colour of death. And with our recent conversation with Angela leaning towards suicide and death itself, it's not crazy to think that these are related. Angela will now be missing for a good chunk of the game, but when we next encounter her, it's our most crucial and emotional meeting we have with her. The labyrinth is the next place we can meet Angela. This mind-bending maze features a nonsensical layout and confusing areas. Its many corridors, twists and turns can leave players lost for ages. And within this maze, we can find Angela once again. And here we can finally learn the truth of what happened to her. Before entering a corridor deep in the labyrinth, a newspaper can be found on the ground. One that is stained with blood and is partially illegible. Reading this newspaper, we learn about a man named Thomas something. His surname is illegible. His dead body was discovered in his home. He was found with multiple stab wounds to the front of the neck and the left side of his torso. His estimated time of death was between 11 PM and 12:30 midnight. However, the crime scene shows signs of a struggle, along with no murder weapon being found, so this case is a homicide. Furthermore, no valuables were taken from his home, and with Mr. Blank's history of drunkenness and violence, the police believe it wasn't a robbery, but a crime of passion or reason. While much of this newspaper is readable, there is still one crucial clue that we still don't know about, but I'll come back to that later on. Entering into the corridor next to the newspaper, we see that the hall is littered with random pieces of other newspapers. These scraps are scattered all over the floors and walls, and there is no major info we can gauge from any of them, aside from a few of them featuring today's date. Shortly after walking down the hall, a disgusting gurgling sound can be heard, one that sounds inhuman. Additionally, a worried and panicked Angela can be heard pleading with someone she calls Daddy. Following those sounds and entering the room they came from, we are met with a room unlike any other in the labyrinth. This room fills me with feelings of disgust and anxiety. The walls of the rooms are the sickly beige colour, with a row of holes spanning along all the walls. Angela is seen on the floor, curled up in a ball. Next to her, we are faced with the source of that beast-like gurgling sound. We are now faced with the abstract Daddy, a disgusting abomination of flesh and faces. Its body is a large rectangle of sheet metal. On top of that sits what looks to be two heads and a mound of flesh supporting them. The only details we can see on this creature's face are its disgusting mouth. This vile-looking monster is then propped up by a simple pair of legs underneath, and we now have to fight this creature head on. This boss fight is tight and never gives you a second to breathe. The loud stomps of this creature's feet as it slowly moves towards James make me feel uneasy, and if you let this creature get too close to James, it raises the front of its body and swallows James's face, forcing James to see inside of it of sorts. Not only is it disgusting in its design, but also in how it attacks James. The fight itself is made even more nauseating by the room we are in and the intense soundtrack playing here. After dealing enough damage, the sack of flesh falls to the floor. Even still, its head and mouth still writhe in pain, as its whole body contorts and wiggles around. James then tries to offer Angela some comfort, to which she ignores him. She stands up and immediately lashes out at the creature. She kicks and kicks at its body. Ultimately, she finds a nearby TV and slams it down on the monster, smashing it off its face. With smoke from the TV still rising, Angela stares down on the body of this monster. Angela, still worked up, instantly turns around and lashes out at James. And here we see just how broken Angela's worldview is. She believes that James has been nice to her all along in order to get close to her. She suspects that he is only after one thing, and that his sincerity towards her was fake. She believes that James's end goal was to come onto her sexually, to which James denies this. While this is an absurd presumption for most people to have, we see that it isn't very far-fetched for someone like Angela to come up with. As Angela then begins to break down, recounting that he used to beat her up and force her to do sexual acts. Angela is specifically talking about her father. He used to abuse her physically, emotionally, and sexually. Not only him, but her brother would also abuse her. On the ground, Angela hurls and retches, almost like she is about to puke. Perhaps she is thinking back on all of the things she has went through. When James tries to offer her some sympathy, she rejects him completely. She then hurls insults at him, and as she gets up, Angela's tone rapidly shifts. She seems skeptical of James, questioning him about Mary. She even objects his claims of Mary dying via illness, as she suspects that James killed his wife because there was another woman. Before James can even properly respond to these allegations, Angela leaves and disappears into the labyrinth. While Angela's claim that Mary didn't die from an illness has truth to it, her claims of James cheating on Mary are untrue. And I don't believe Angela had any insight into James's past, just that she knew he was called to Sodden Hill like herself, and thus she makes an awful presumption about him. Now left alone in this room, we can examine the area more closely. Those cavities in the walls I mentioned have these mechanical pistons of sorts within them. They move back and forth in a thrusting motion, in what looks to be a manifestation of the sexual acts that Angela was forced into. Looking back to the abstract daddy creature, in its name, it's obvious that this monster represents Angela's father, although the creature's two heads is a manifestation of not only her father, but her brother also. The only detailed features of this beast are its mouth, to which this references the emotional abuse of her father's ridicule. The creature's heads are less detailed, with them being just a mound of flesh, and its body's large metallic frame perhaps being a reference to the crushing claustrophobic weight Angela would have felt on top of her. What's even more disturbing about this creature is that this is just a physical manifestation that us and James Sunderland see. Much like many of this game's manifestations, Pyramid Head, Maria, and so on, they are all typically tied to one person specifically, and although James does see a monster, what Angela sees is far worse. This was revealed by the game's art director and monster designer Masahiro Ito. He stated on Twitter that nobody besides Angela may know what the abstract daddy really looks like, which brings a whole new level to this fight. This whole section is dirty, gross, and tragic, and as I played this section for the first time, it felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. With this added context, an even deeper meaning behind the mirror room can be explored. I mentioned that with depression, typically body dysmorphia can follow, along with general feelings of not belonging and self-hatred. However, I believe that with this mirror, they remind Angela that she shares the same DNA as her abuser, with every time she sees her reflection being a reminder of that horrible fact. Back in the labyrinth, not far from the Abstract Daddy room, we can find that crucial clue that was missing from the newspaper. Strangely, a grassy area can be seen within the labyrinth, along with a few headstones. While most of these are important, 3 headstones in particular sit behind 3 freshly dug graves, and the names written on these 3 headstones are James Sunderland, Angela Orosco, and Eddie Dombrowski, which that's it. Angela's surname is Orosco. Going back to that newspaper now, we can see that the man named in it is called Thomas, and his surname starts with an O-R-O. The man in the newspaper is Thomas Orosco, Angela's father. With this confirmation of his death via a sharp-edged weapon and Angela's trauma and abuse at his hands, we can safely presume that Angela killed her father and presumably her brother too. I also called out her strange body language that she displayed back in the cemetery when she tells James that she is searching for her brother and father, because in reality she wasn't. In actuality, she was running away after murdering them, and her bloody knife we picked up earlier was the murder weapon. Her backstory also explains her odd sense of age. I earlier talked about how her mannerisms would indicate she is a young girl, when in her appearance and voice, she appears like a much older woman. I believe this was caused by her abuse at home. From a young age, being subject to such vile things from her own family completely stunted her growth in some aspects, such as her speech, and it only accelerated other aspects, such as her appearance. Her years of trauma, abuse, and ridicule completely messed with her body and mind, which is an awful realization to have, but it shows how well thought out Angela is as a character. Her trauma is carefully woven into every aspect of her design. Now knowing Angela's tragic backstory, we will come across Angela one final time within the Lakeview Hotel. The final location we explore in Silent Hill 2, Lakeview Hotel, is an oddity. It appears initially as a normal yet eerily abandoned hotel. However, it is eventually revealed to be the exact opposite. In reality, it's decrepit, damp, and mostly destroyed. It also begins to lose its sense of continuity as we try to leave, showing James's mental decline. And within this nonsensical version of the hotel, we can come across Angela one final time. The usual dirty, wet and damp hotel basement is altered, and upon entering the stairway, we find Angela on the staircase, with the entire room being engulfed in thick flames. Along the staircase, Angela is seen thoroughly examining a fleshy carcass that's inside of a picture frame. Upon realizing someone is nearby, Angela turns and greets James as if he was her mother. Perhaps in her exhaustion or due to the smoke and flames around her, she begins to see visions of her mother. But we don't see the heartfelt greeting one would expect Angela to give her mother after searching for her. There is a far more sinister tone in what Angela says, with Angela saying that her mama is the only one left, and that maybe then she can rest. This implies that Angela is searching for her mother in order to kill her, with her being the only one left, referring to her brother and father, who she has already killed. After getting close to James, she snaps out of her state of psychosis. She then thanks James for saving her earlier. However, she wishes he left her to die. And this isn't only due to her depressive mindset. She then mentions how her mama would tell her she deserved all the abuse she got. Her mother wasn't innocent in Angela's torment. She would constantly ridicule Angela, manipulating her and damaging her mental fortitude. After the sexual and physical abuse at the hands of her brother and father, Angela would then be ripped apart mentally by her mother, who also never intervened in Angela's physical abuse. Angela's low self-worth has been seen throughout the entire game, and that was caused by her mother. In a half-mocking tone, Angela then asks James if he wants to save her and love her, to which James simply lowers his head in silence. This line sticks with me, and it to me at least seems like Angela is aware that she is beyond repair, but figures she will try to reach out anyways. James is too far gone mentally in his own way, and is the wrong person for the job. Angela then asks James to return her knife. James denies her request, and thus again, Angela compares herself to him, with her asking him if he is saving the knife to use on himself. James is again dismissive and offended that she would even ask that. During the mirror room scene, Angela made a comparison between the two of them, which James didn't like either. However, I believe it's because he does see at least some of himself in Angela, and he doesn't want to. The flames within the staircase begin to grow larger and larger, to which James states that it's hot as hell in here. Angela seems surprised that James can even see the flames, and she remarks that for her, it always looks like this, which has multiple interpretations. One could be how Angela's version of Silent Hill is simply made up of flames. James sees thick layers of fog to symbolise his hazy memory, and Angela sees fire to represent the hell she has lived through. And these flames could also represent simply how Angela's life has been nothing but hell. Both of these could be true. With James not returning the knife to Angela, she ascends the flaming staircase, never to be seen again. Although you could conclude that she shortly went on and ended her own life. A subtle bit of symbolism here that ties into the staircase itself is how James stays at the bottom while Angela goes up the staircase. This could be a reference to James going to hell and Angela going to heaven. Examining the stairway a bit closer, we can look at the corpses hanging on the wall. Around their pelvis area, a deep bloody stain can be seen, and with two of these male-like bodies on the wall, they could represent her brother and father. With the flames growing larger, we are forced to exit the stairway, which brings it back to normal. And with that, Angela Orosco was never seen again. Angela's story of abuse, trauma, sexual assault, and depression is so tightly woven into every aspect of her character. Her appearance, mannerisms, body language, and of course, her manifestations. All of these can teach the player about her truly tragic story. And although she isn't the main character at all, she is very important to this game's story. We can learn some key points about James himself through his interactions with Angela. And along with that, she is an unforgettable part of this game. I truly hope none of you ever have to experience anything like Angela has. Unfortunately, sexual assault and abuse like this does happen. And if you have had anything like this happen to you, I want you to know that it is okay to reach out to local authorities, support groups, or anyone whom you think would listen. I hope anyone out there who has been affected by abuse like this is doing okay, and I hope that you can find what you need to heal. Now that was the entire story of Angela Orosco explained. Perhaps not only Silent Hill, but the survival horror genre's most tragic character. And she is an unforgettable piece of Silent Hill 2. So please let me know if you enjoyed this video, and tell me down below if you learned something new about Angela, or Silent Hill 2 itself. I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I will hopefully see you in my next one. Peace.